Okay, this lesson for the Cornet Project class in light of the recent, eruption of a severe debate that was catalyzed by contradiction between Dr. Ken Ham of Answers in Genesis and Dr. William Lane Craig of Reasonable Faith. One is young earther, identifies as a young earther. Dr. William Lane Craig, as far removed from young earth as he can be, he actually almost by implication suggested young earth in 6 days. Trying to take that literally was required some gymnastics in hermeneutics and things like that. But before we just jump in, and certainly we don't have to pick sides, we can stop for just a moment. Remember, Bible languages, we talked about biblical Hebrew, the inflectional morphemes, and just for a moment we can look at some of the really simple things. I'll include a link in the description to the to a PDF where it's already been calculated out, things like this. Several websites out there have cited this before, but since we've used our language, and those of you that have been using it, this is Genesis 1:1. You remember this language is pictographic, it's phonetic, and it's also numeric. So here's the first word, Bereshith, in beginning, and then you notice something we'll be careful to notice because the Bible is by design about Jesus. That is bara itself, design, form, and that's this word here. So you'll notice these three letters, I lined it up this way. So you can notice the first three letters in Bereshith, in beginning, is also the first three letters of the word create. And this is the second letter, Son, first letter for God, Son of God. This is Resh, Prince, highest Prince. Then we have Shin, that's violence. We have Yod, hand. And then this is Tet, it's symbolized in pictographic expression as crossed sticks. So by the hand of violence, the Son of God, crucified. Now we have the Prince, the Son of God, is the Creator. And then we have Elohim, and that is, again, you notice how Aleph lines up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 7 words, 28 letters. There's a simple equation. The number of letters, of course, 28, times the product of the letters, divided by the number of the words, 7 words times the product of the words. And of course, here's the product of the words, or the letters, 2.3887872 times 10 to the 34th power. Now, of course, on the calculators we have today, this is really, it's just arithmetic. This isn't even mathematics. So then the product of the words, 3.0415353 times 10 to the 17th power. Now, this gets you 3.14155 times 10 to the 17th. Now, pi, which is what the article was about, showing that the Bible had knowledge of the numbers that we find so useful today, and we use in such precise manners. Remember, we talked about pi once being a number whose decimal is always repeating, and yet it, when multiplied by 2 times the radius, which is diameter, you then have 2 pi r. It gives you the constant, which is the circumference, which is a constant number. So we have to ask ourselves, how does a variable give us a constant? Well, that's some of the things that prevent those of us who study language from being caught in these dead constructs. Some want everything, they call it determinism. Calvinism, for example, you take the 5 points, it's all total, everything's determined, and yet we have the word, determined is often translated from boule, those of you that have worked in this class. Then desire is thelema. And then, of course, we have the word design, bara, form or fashion. So design. So we have design, determine, or plan. The idea of boule is also plan. So we have design and plan and desire. So we have determination, desire, and design. So that's called unification. So for us to see something with a repeating decimal that can then be used as a constant pi to multiply 2 pi r and get the circumference a constant number, then that's not unusual for those who use a little bit of arithmetic. But when it comes to Dr. William Lane Craig, he really doesn't have a very high view as far as the text. He considers them literary constructs. He even almost, well, in a diminutive way, he spoke about a rib floating in the air, and of course he didn't see the descriptive language. It didn't occur to him maybe to think about cloning and the advanced expressions that were being made. He certainly doesn't speak of the numbers as these represent. And if we can, just for a moment, and like I said, I'll put the link on there to this, because you all run into a lot of people that say they can't know these things, and it's really arithmetic. We haven't dealt with mathematics. Arithmetic's about all we do, and that was enough to see that, because that was very encouraging to know that if you have confidence in the Bible and you have a high view of the scriptures, which give the highest view of creation, for example, in Genesis 1:1, we have the instant and spoken creation that's referenced in Isaiah 48:3, and that instantaneity. So Dr. William Lane Craig said to believe or support that the original universe event of Genesis 1:1, he then skips to the 6 days. He said, but to suggest that 6 days had to be literal 24, he almost, if he didn't say it, he certainly implied that it was ludicrous. It's just, what would he say about instantaneity? And what would he say about the field of science, let's say, where we know that anything eternal cannot and does not change, and we know that just simply the infinite power of God would not allow for would not allow time to transpire in the Genesis 1:1 event, all powerful, the immutable God, omnipotent, and then we refer to instantaneity. So even the 1 over infinity, which isn't technically 0, because infinity's the sign for infinity, of course, a symbol, that's not really a number. But we know in some very low arithmetic in calculus, for example, that as we have a limit, for example, let's say 1 over x, as x approaches infinity, well, that is 0. But Dr. William Lane Craig didn't refer to any of those things. Now, he's very large advocate, a big advocate on Leibniz, who developed calculus, Newton, who developed calculus. But he doesn't quote their work, for example, in relationship to this. So instantaneity is a fact of the scriptures. I wouldn't know how someone would even entertain rejecting that. It would be a difficult. There's nothing in the Bible that would invite someone to reject instantaneity, which is according to the omnipotence of God, the instantaneity and immutability of God. He certainly didn't diminish, and he certainly wasn't that which he created. So when we speak of that and we see these numbers and the letter that is the number E in John 1:1, you'll see that in the link as well. I'll make a video about that. But to notice exactly how brilliant the Bible is, and the view of it is if we took that 6,250 year chronological age and we did it times the 12-hour day that Jesus Christ, the Creator himself, said there's 12 hours in the day. And then, of course, we took the 6,250 years times 12-hour night. Now we've accounted for our 24 hours. We have that accounted for. So we now have 12,500 years of 24-hour days. And we noticed that if we just took that alone and multiplied it by the 360-day year, that gave us 4.5 million days. And working on the ratios, 1 day to 1,000 years, that's 1 day. So we have our days now, and then if we multiply this 4.5 million days times 1,000 years, all we have to do there is just change our unit of measure from days to years and add 3 zeros. That's 4.5 billion years for the Earth. Now again, that's a crude decay. Well, here, let me just write decay here. And that decay rate, we can see that we have a decay rate. For example, in catapulsion of the original Earth, and that is the original creation, the original universe, of which there's even in Dr. William Lane Craig's bias towards science, it's suggested that there's only this universe in which we exist today is only 1/1000th of the original. So in that catapulsion, we could even use the Bible's numbers of 1,000 years per day, and that would be approximately 36 times the speed of light. So that would be quite a destructive occasion to show the severity of God's reaction against the rebellion of which the Bible speaks. And that catapulsion rate of 1,000 years per day, approximately 36 times the speed of light. These things, well, for me, I would have expected Dr. William Lane Craig to be more aligned with instantaneity, noticing the distinction between chronological age and geological ages, the difference between growth rates and decay rates, which are quite different. Some growth rates can be incremental while the decay rate's exponential. So I was quite well, I can't say disappointed, because I don't have a right to interpose upon Dr. William Lane Craig expectations that are mine and not his. But let's say we take the 4.5 and we go back the other way. Now let's go to the 1,000 years as 1 day. So now we've got our days and years, and we see the decay rate and how fast and how severe this is. And Dr. William Lane Craig knows time's not linear in the way we would think, so that someone would take an exponential decay rate and try to stretch that out in a long line, for example. That would be counter to the truth of time measure. So 4.5, now that 4.5 billion, let's multiply it by 1,000 days. So 4.5 billion times 1,000 days. And remember, that's just using arithmetic, that's approximately 2.78 years. And that's close to the number E as well, by the way. So that would give us 12.5 billion years. And again, that would be your accrued decay and the amount of decay. So the Bible certainly does, as Dr. Al Mohler said, that he understands the perception of age in our universe and of the earth to be a demonstration and an evidence, if you will, of the severity of sin and God's judgment against it. So for us, for example, those of us in this class using the Bible languages, we already have the numbers, we have the pictographic, we have the phonetics, so we have the words, the sound, and math is, well, arithmetic in this case, is a language for us. But you can set this up, see your own 28 letters, 7 words. You can line it up with Aleph. You have 6 ones here. You remember Aleph is also 1,000, so there's a forecast of 6,000 year history of man. We have 1, there's a forecast of 6 day creation. All of a sudden, all this starts being indicative of everything else. It's all unified according to unification theory, and there's no contradiction in the scriptures. And of course, we've learned enough to expect more. So yes, Dr. William Lane Craig, I would just simply communicate that I have higher expectations because the scriptures have a much higher view. So if he denies instantaneity, Genesis 1:1, and then he denies 6 day, that work of God in Bara, forming, fashioning, making it habitable for man, where he then placed Adam, then I'm not really sure what more of the Bible he could take much more seriously than how little he takes the creation account. So that's just observation. But here's some good information. You can do this and do this in Sunday school, and go to the younger group really likes these things because they like to draw and they use numbers and they're working on these things already. So enjoy this and have a blessed day.